Some people are noticed everywhere, yet truly known by no one. They're seen every day, but no one has ever really looked at them. There's a quiet kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being ignored. It comes from being seen, but only on the surface. From people recognizing your face, your role, your presence, without ever knowing who you actually are inside. In this video, we're going to break down the psychology of people who feel seen, but never known. Why it happens, how it shapes the way you think and act, and the hidden cost of living your whole life this way. And by the end, you might recognize parts of yourself you've never had words for before. Being seen sounds like a good thing. Most people think the real pain is invisibility, being ignored, being overlooked. But there's something more confusing and often more damaging about being seen without being understood. These are the people others describe easily. He's the quiet one. She's always so strong. They're reliable. They're funny. But those descriptions are thin, flat, like a sticker placed on a complex person. When you feel seen but never known, people notice your presence, but not your inner world. They know how you perform, not how you feel. They see your mask, not your face. This usually starts early, often very early. Many people who grow up feeling this way learned, without anyone saying it out loud, that their deeper emotions weren't welcome. Or maybe no one asked how they felt. Or maybe when they did share, it was brushed off, minimized, or misunderstood. So they adapted. They learned to show what got approval and hide what didn't. Over time, this creates a strange split inside you. There's the version of you that exists in public, and the version that stays locked away. People see the outside version all the time. The inside version, almost no one has met them. And here's the tricky part. From the outside, your life might look fine, even successful. You might have friends, a job, a family, social interactions, people who say your name. But inside, there's this constant feeling of being emotionally alone, even when you're not physically alone. You can be sitting at a table with people laughing, talking, sharing stories, and still feel like you're watching everything through glass. That feeling doesn't come from being unwanted, it comes from being misread. Psychologically, this often leads to what's called emotional self-concealment. That's when someone hides their real thoughts and feelings, not because they're secretive, but because they don't believe anyone would truly get them anyway. And after a while, it doesn't even feel like hiding anymore. It just feels normal. You stop explaining yourself. You stop correcting people's assumptions. You stop expecting to be understood, not because you don't want connection, but because you've learned not to expect it. There's also a strong link here to people-pleasing and role-based identity. If you grew up being valued mainly for what you did, not who you were, you might have learned to survive by becoming useful, agreeable, or emotionally low maintenance. You became the one who listens, the one who adapts, the one who doesn't cause problems. People notice you because you fit, because you function, because you don't disrupt the room. But fitting in is not the same as being known. And the more you perfect this role, the harder it becomes to step out of it. Because once people think they know you, changing that image feels risky. You worry that if you show your real thoughts, your real feelings, or your real needs, it might confuse people, or disappoint them, or push them away, so you keep playing the part they recognize. This is why many people who feel seen but never known struggle to answer simple questions like, "How are you really?" Not because they don't have an answer, but because the honest answer feels too big, too messy, or too invisible to explain. There's also a quiet grief that comes with this. A grief for the version of you that no one ever asked about. You might wonder what it would feel like to be deeply understood, to have someone look at you and say, "I see who you really are." Not just what you do, not just how you act, but how you think, how you feel, what you carry. And because that hasn't happened often, if at all, you might start to believe it's unrealistic, or that you're asking for too much. So instead, you settle for being seen. Here's the problem. Living this way slowly disconnects you from yourself. When no one really knows you, you start to question whether you even know yourself. You spend so much time managing how you're perceived that your own inner voice gets quieter. Your needs become harder to hear. Your preferences blur. You might notice this when you're alone, when there's no one to perform for, no one to respond to, no one to mirror you. Instead of feeling peaceful, you feel empty, or restless, or strangely numb. That's because your sense of identity has been shaped mostly by external feedback, by how others see you, not how you experience yourself. Another challenge is that people often assume that being seen equals being supported, but that's not true. Someone can know your name, your job, your habits, even your history, and still have no idea what you're struggling with internally. So when you do feel overwhelmed, burnt out, or lonely, you might hesitate to speak up. After all, people already think they know you, and the version they know seems fine. You don't want to break that image. So you keep quiet, and the silence grows. Let's talk about why this pattern sticks around for so long. One reason is that being seen without being known is safer than being fully known and rejected. If you show only parts of yourself and people stay, it feels stable, predictable. You don't risk too much. But full emotional exposure carries uncertainty. What if someone sees the real you and doesn't like it? What if they misunderstand you again, but this time it hurts more because you actually tried? So the mind chooses the lesser pain. There's also a biological side to this. Humans are wired for connection, but we're also wired to avoid social rejection. If early experiences taught you that your deeper self wasn't welcomed, your nervous system learned to stay guarded. You might feel a subtle tension when conversations get too personal, a tightness in your chest when someone asks deeper questions, an urge to joke, deflect, or keep things surface level. Not because you don't want intimacy, but because your body remembers that intimacy once came with disappointment. Another factor is that modern life often rewards visibility over vulnerability. Social spaces, workplaces, even friendships often focus on presentation, on performance, on being interesting, capable, or agreeable. Depth takes time, safety, emotional patience, and not everyone offers that, so people who already learn to hide find it easier to stay hidden in plain sight. There's also a misconception that if someone really cared, they would notice. But many people simply don't know how to look deeper. They assume that what they see is the full story. So unless you speak up, they don't realize there's more beneath the surface. And if you've spent years being misunderstood, speaking up can feel exhausting, like translating a language no one else speaks. So you stay quiet, not because you have nothing to say, but because you're tired of explaining. Climax, memento clave. Here's the turning point. Feeling seen but never known is not a personality flaw, it's not a weakness, and it doesn't mean you're incapable of deep connection. It means you learn to survive in environments where being fully yourself didn't feel safe. The pain you feel isn't because you want attention, it's because you want recognition, understanding, emotional accuracy. And here's the key realization: being known requires safety, not exposure. You don't need to tell everyone everything. You don't need to suddenly become open with the whole world. What matters is finding even one space, one person, one relationship, one moment, where you can slowly let your real self exist without performing. And that starts by recognizing when you're hiding, not out of choice, but out of habit. It starts by noticing when you downplay your feelings, when you default to "I'm fine" even when you're not, when you explain yourself away before anyone even questions you, and most importantly, it starts with you taking your own inner world seriously. Because if you don't treat your feelings as real, meaningful, and worthy of understanding, it's hard for anyone else to do it either. Being known doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small, honest moments, in pauses, in shared silence, in someone listening without trying to fix you. And yes, it's scary, because it means risking misunderstanding again. But it's also the only way to move from being seen to being truly known. People who feel seen but never known often look fine on the outside, but inside they carry a quiet loneliness that's hard to explain. They learn to be visible without being vulnerable, recognized without being understood, present without being deeply connected. This pattern usually formed early as a way to stay safe. And while it once helped, over time it creates distance from others and from yourself. The good news is that this isn't permanent. Awareness alone begins to loosen the pattern, and choosing even small moments of honesty can slowly rewrite it. You don't need to be known by everyone. You just need to be known by someone, and eventually by yourself. If this hit close to home, watch the next video on the screen. It goes even deeper into the quiet psychology behind emotional disconnection.